Ultra Instinct Omen vs Jiren, Zeldris vs Ludishell, Kimimaro vs Naruto, Pito vs Kite, and Shinra vs Sho. What do all of these battles have in common? The answer is speed. Speed was the deciding factor that concluded all of these battles, so let's talk about speed's importance. Luckily enough, speed is not as downplayed as power. People tend to understand that massive speed gaps do tend to do some things, but what can speed do specifically that overrides it in certain scenarios and compared to things like power and things like hacks and things like all other things? Well, the main difference that speed has above all things, especially referring to combat speed, is the versatility of it. Speed can allow you to attack your opponent without them being able to attack you. No matter how much hacks your opponent has, no matter how much experience they have compared to you, no matter how many numbers they have compared to you, no matter how many skills they have compared to you, or how much more technically skilled they are than you, if you can drastically outspeed them, all of that pretty much falls to the wayside because none of those abilities can land. A common theme is that once you get a little bit too fast for your opponent, they just aren't able to hit you. However, let's say your opponent has an ability that not only allows them to avoid all of your attacks, but also attack you freely, naturally, without reacting, something akin to an Ultra Instinct, if you will. Well, if you're fast enough, you can kind of match and or overwhelm that in some cases. The importance of speed in terms of hacks is very well portrayed in Ultra Instinct Omen Goku vs Jiren at the start of the Tournament of Power. What happened? Goku got his new ability, he was able to avoid and attack Jiren very, very well. However, the thing was, he wasn't supposed to be getting hit at all. He wasn't supposed to be able to be blocked at all. It was Ultra Instinct. He was supposed to be able to avoid and attack freely without any interruption. But Jiren, due to having the raw speed, managed to bypass that ability of the technique. This even happens later when Jiren fights Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku. This is a Goku who is able to attack and defend simultaneously without thought perfectly, because it's Mastered Ultra Instinct. However, Jiren, once he awakens his full power, doesn't really seem to care. He still blocks Goku, he still manages to hold him off, he still manages to do things that he shouldn't have been able to do, but that's because of his raw speed. He was able to keep up, and that's the main issue with certain hacks abilities. If your opponent's able to keep up with you and or outpace you depending on the ability, you won't ever be able to land it. Imagine in something like Naruto, where we take something akin to like a Sekitachi, one of the most hacked characters in the verse even while weakened, and we throw up against KCM2 Sage Mode Naruto. It doesn't matter that Itachi has Tsukuyomi and, based off what Sasuke was able to do, should be able to suppress the Nine Tails. The Nine Tails fused with Naruto, and Naruto using the Nine Tails Chakra in KCM2 plus Sage Mode is simply too fast for Itachi to even hope to land the jutsu. Take a look at the Raikage versus Sasuke. Amaterasu is supposedly an undodgeable ability, but the Raikage was too fast for the hacks. He just moved out of the way, dodged it, and didn't have to worry about it. Speed can greatly overwhelm hacks in some cases, and that's why, as good as Helm hacks are, unless you are relative to your opponent or hopefully outspeeding them, you're very unlikely to be able to use your hacks, which is the main issue in terms of that case. In terms of the next major function to worry about, it would be experience. So if you're extremely experienced, you'd think you'd be able to overwhelm something like a speed gap. Not necessarily. Take a look at Zeldris vs Ludishell from 7 Deadly Sins. Zeldris was definitely less experienced than Ludishell. Ludishell is most certainly older than him. Zeldris is younger than Mael, who has about 100 years on him, and Mael is the younger brother of Ludishell. So, Ludishell definitely has the experience. He's been fighting way longer than Zeldris has even been alive. However, that didn't seem to matter the moment Zeldris actually used some of his full power and managed to completely outspeed Ludishell. Ludishell couldn't do anything against Omnis Nebula. Why? Because it was too darn fast. And that was about it. Ludishell was even able to survive some hits from Omnis Nebula, but the main issue was he couldn't move fast enough to even deal with it. Combat speed-wise, travel speed-wise, Omnis Nebula was simply too fast. Speed overwhelmed experience. Same case in something like Naruto with KCM Naruto versus the Raikage. Didn't matter that the Raikage had way more experience than Naruto. The moment Naruto went full power, zoom, was faster than the Raikage, and the Raikage couldn't hit him. Stuff like that. Experience, good factor when the speed gap is smaller, but if the speed gap is drastic enough, experience, like hacks, can be outdone. Speaking of Naruto, let's talk about some numbers versus some speed. Kimimaro was way faster than Naruto in their fight. It didn't matter that Naruto had many shadow clones, Kimimaro just kept outspeeding them all and just casually slicing them apart. Didn't matter. The numbers just didn't stop Kimimaro because he was too fast for Naruto to even handle, and that's why Naruto needed help with that. Thus, once again, another aspect such as numbers, which is highly valued, did not end up mattering because of how speedy the opponent was in that scenario. Same thing happens for something like Dragon Ball. Look at Jason Berta versus Goku. Didn't matter that there were two of them there, still got body bagged by Goku because he was faster than them. Speed does play a pretty overwhelming factor when it comes to a lot of things, including fights, when they involve numbers, which is crazy to think about, but yeah, if you're massively faster than a whole group of people, what's a group of people going to do to you? Pretty much nothing. Same thing applies when it comes down to the number of skills a person has too. Even if you have a ton of great abilities, such as someone like Kite did in Hunter x Hunter, the moment Pitou showed up, due to its advanced speed in comparison to Kite, it didn't matter. Lopped his arm off and kept it moving, and then lopped his head off and kept it moving. It was just stuff like that. The speed can overwhelm no matter how many skills you have. Because if you can't land any of those skills, none of those skills are able to touch your opponent, then you're kind of done. It doesn't really matter what you're able to do against someone if you hit them, if you can't hit them. As long as someone's moving too fast for you to land a hit on, none of your abilities, no matter how numerous, no matter how diverse, really matter. And this is another case in something like Dragon Ball. Think of all the techniques Cell knew when he was fighting Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan. None of them mattered. Why? Because Gohan was way faster than him. Didn't land anything, couldn't do anything, didn't matter how many techniques he had. Numerous, nigh uncountable, but it didn't matter because Gohan was just faster, and thus none of the abilities could work, none of the abilities could land, none of the hits could land. The same case applies with speed ruling overall in the case of Shinra vs. Sho from Fire Force. So, Sho was definitely more technically skilled than Shinra. He was wielding a blade, he was trained since birth, had many more years of practical combat training than Shinra did. Guess what? It didn't matter the moment Shinra managed to outspeed him. He actually managed to start styling on Sho by pure accident, just because he was moving too fast. Because when you're faster than your opponent, it doesn't matter how good they are with their fists, a blade, a weapon of any sort, as long as they cannot hit you, oh well, then they're kind of done. All that skill goes to waste if you're a bit too fast, and that's the thing. In general, if you are faster than your opponent by a decent enough margin, none of the hits can land. And if none of the hits can land, as long as you can land hits on them and they're of decent power, let's not talk about overwhelming power, then you're kind of done. Because what are you meant to do in that situation? If you can't hit them, but they can hit you, the person who's more likely to land more hits is definitely going to win. However, just as in the case with the power video, I'm not saying speed can't be overcome if in smaller gaps or if just worked around. If your entire hack's ability overwhelms an entire area that you're fighting in, say you're able to alter the fundamental rules of reality and make it so that they can't run anymore, then great, your hack's overwhelms. Say you have experience with someone who is massively faster than you, that's constantly just dominated you in the past, but you've learned how to fight them, and you run into this person with a similar dynamic to you. They're just massively faster than you. If you have the experience to deal with that, then maybe you can pull out a win. If your numbers are able to stall out your opponent's stamina, in the sense of when they're massively faster than you, are just able to keep throwing fodder at them over and over and over again until they tire out and eventually pass out, then yeah, your numbers can work pretty well, as long as you're willing to sacrifice people like that. Same case for something like number of skills. If one of your skills manages to land, or one of your skills manages to nullify the speed advantage in some way, shape, or form, then there you go. Your ability works out well enough, and your number of skills worked in your favor. Same case for someone with more technical skill. If the speed gap isn't too large, or if your opponent doesn't know how to use that speed, but you are able to manipulate the battle in a way that you're able to manipulate where they're going to use that speed, and then take them out from there, it can work out. Once again, not saying that speed, if you were, well, it's kind of weird. If you're millions of times faster than somebody, it's an automatic win condition. I'm just saying it's much more likely for someone who is massively faster to win, because they're going to be able to avoid more techniques if it's in their nature, and they're going to be able to land more techniques if it's in their nature. If they're willing to outspeed you and blitz you, then yeah, you're kind of done. What are you going to do? Die. That's what you're going to do, or you're going to lose the match. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? Do you think speed can be countered? And what do you think is more important, actually, speed or power? Leaning towards me, I would say that it depends situation by situation. I can't say one definitively, though I would prefer personally to have more speed, just because, think about it, in a situation like this, where you are massively faster than your opponent, but your opponent's massively more durable or powerful than you, no matter how many hits you land on them, they aren't going to do anything. Let's say I take a fly and put it up against an elephant. The elephant's way more powerful. It's really a wall of multi-ton muscle that's not really going to move. The fly is way faster and most certainly will be able to land more hits on the elephant, but if these hits don't do anything, then oh well. But the same case for someone with a whole bunch of power. If I say the elephant just starts swinging around trying to hit the fly, yeah, just because if the hit lands, the elephant's going to one-shot the fly, doesn't mean that they're going to be able to actually land the hit and one-shot the fly. It's just a weird thing. If the gap in power and the gap in speed is too massive between both parties, then it comes down to an external factor, like stamina. Like, is the faster person going to run out of energy before the bigger person? Is the bigger person going to run out of energy before the faster person? Stuff like that. So many external factors come in when talking about certain discussions that I can't easily give one to a topic overall. But if I were to take someone like I don't know, beginning of series Naruto versus end of series Goku, but I like somehow equalize their power and leave the speed gap, then Goku's obviously going to win. Same case with anything of that situation where the speed, basically, my point is, if the speed's a bit too massive and the power's a bit too relative, then the speedier person is definitely going to take the win, no matter what external factors the other character has, unless they are external factors like a Hax that overwhelms an entire area or something like that. There are situations where either can go, but I'm more likely leaning towards speed. That's basically wanted to explain this video, but what do you guys think? Please tell me in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.